Ivan the Terrible, familial line. Ivan was part of the Rurik dynasty, which had ruled over the Slavic region since 862 BC. Physical attributes. Ambassadors described him as tall and thin, with large eyes and a long beard. Occupation: Tsar. What he brings to the table. The Russian Empire expanded greatly under Ivan the Terrible, becoming the centralized entity we know today. Possible red flags. You don't become known as the Terrible for no reason. It's theorized one of his violent outbursts led to him beating his son to death. What happened to him? After it became clear Elizabeth had no intention of marrying him, Ivan and the Queen continued to navigate a diplomatic relationship between the two countries. Although Ivan and Elizabeth were allies and corresponded often, Ivan became known for his fits of rage and brutal tactics throughout his decades on the Russian throne. He would marry 8 times in total. Francis, Duke of Anjou, familial line. His family were as prestigious as they come. His parents were King Henry II of France and Catherine de' Medici of the extremely powerful Medici dynasty. Physical attributes. Elizabeth is said to have been attracted to the Duke, who was much younger than she. Occupation: heir and military leader. What he brings to the table. Francis was the heir to the French throne, as his brother King Henry III did not have any heirs. A marriage between Elizabeth and Francis would have solidified a French-English alliance. Possible red flags. Well, if you're Elizabeth, the fact that Francis was Catholic would have been a huge political issue had the marriage gone forward. What happened to him? A few years after Elizabeth decided once and for all she would not marry Francis, he led an ill-advised attempt to take Antwerp by force. He returned home after suffering a humiliating defeat and died about a year later. Philip II of Spain, familial line. He was the son of Holy Roman Emperor Charles V and a member of the powerful Habsburg dynasty. Physical attributes. If his portraits are accurate, Philip was a handsome suitor. Occupation: King of Spain and Portugal. What he brings to the table. A marriage to Philip would have united the kingdoms of Spain, Portugal and England once again. Possible red flags. Philip II only began pursuing marriage with Elizabeth after his wife, Mary I of England, Elizabeth's sister, died. It is even possible he began pursuing her before Mary died. That prospect alone is strange enough, but when you consider Elizabeth's father did the same thing when he married Catherine of Aragon, it's no wonder she was wary of the match. What happened to him? After talks of marriage broke down between the two, Philip married the daughter of Henry II of France instead. Throughout the decades that followed, England and Spain were almost constantly in conflict. Robert Devereux, familial line. He was the son of Lettice Knollys and Walter Devereux, and the stepson of Robert Dudley. Physical attributes. Described as tall and handsome. Occupation, military leader. What he brings to the table. Nearing the end of her reign, Elizabeth was incredibly lonely, as several of the people closest to her had died. Devereux was young, charismatic, and full of flattery for the aging queen. Possible red flags. He was 34 years younger than Elizabeth and likely indulged their flirtation to gain political favour. What happened to him? He fell out of favour almost as quickly as he gained it. After ignoring direct orders to quash a rebellion, Elizabeth imprisoned him. When he was released, he planned his own rebellion against the Queen, with the ultimate goal of kidnapping and removing her from power. He was found guilty and executed for treason. Eric XIV of Sweden. Familiar line. The House of Vasa. Physical attributes. Eric was extremely pleased with the portrait Elizabeth commissioned to see what he looked like. Elizabeth, however, was not, and ended the courtship after seeing it. Occupation. King of Sweden. What he brings to the table. As Protestants, there were no major religious differences between the couple. One of the key barriers preventing marriage with Elizabeth's other suitors. Possible red flags. Eric became paranoid of treason throughout his rule, leading to a murder that sealed his fate as king. What happened to him? After Elizabeth refused Eric's hand, the Swedish king sent his brother, Duke John, to press the case. Just 7 years later, Eric was removed from his throne and imprisoned, replaced and poisoned by the same brother. Thomas Seymour. Familiar line. Thomas's sister, Jane Seymour, was Henry VIII's third wife. Physical attributes. He was reportedly charming, handsome, and intelligent. Occupation. Military leader and royal advisor. What he brings to the table. The Seymours were a major political power in Tudor England. However, the family gained their position because of their relationship with the Tudors. Possible red flags. Thomas's relationship with Elizabeth began while he was still married to her stepmother, Catherine Parr. Although the full extent of their relationship is still unknown, Elizabeth was banished from the Parr-Seymour household after Catherine caught the then princess with Thomas in a passionate embrace. Elizabeth was just 14 at the time, and Thomas was 25 years older. What happened to him? After Catherine's death in childbirth, Thomas attempted to kidnap his young nephew, King Edward. When his brother, Edward Seymour, Lord Protector, caught wind of this, he had Thomas arrested. Thomas was subsequently charged with 33 counts of treason and executed. Charles II of Austria. Familiar line. Charles was a member of the infamous and powerful Habsburg dynasty. Physical attributes. Elizabeth told an ambassador she'd heard rumours that Charles had an abnormally large head and said she would not agree to marry a man based on a portrait alone. However, an envoy later assured Elizabeth that his head was a normal size and there was no merit to this rumour. Occupation. Heir. What he brings to the table. An alliance with the Habsburgs, who control a powerful European empire. Possible red flags. Charles's pursuit of Elizabeth had ulterior motives. The people arranging the match hoped it would eventually lead to the Queen's conversion to Catholicism. What happened to him? Ultimately, marriage negotiations between Charles and Elizabeth broke down due to their religious differences. Charles married his niece instead, continuing their Habsburgs' self-destructive practice of intermarriage, and they had 15 children. Robert Dudley. Familial line. Prior to Robert's relationship with Elizabeth, the Dudleys were no friends of the Tudors. Henry VIII executed Robert's grandfather for treason. Elizabeth's older sister, Mary, executed Robert's father for his involvement in the Lady Jane Grey saga. He was integral in her brief accession to the throne. Robert himself was also imprisoned for his involvement. Physical attributes. Described as a tall, fine-featured man. Occupation. Master of the horse to Elizabeth. A notable appointment for the man widely regarded as her great love. It made him the only person actually allowed to touch her when helping her on and off her horse. What he brings to the table. In comparison to Elizabeth's other suitors, not much. This would have been a marriage purely for love. Dudley's grandfather was a duke and Robert himself had lands and titles granted to him by Elizabeth. Possible red flags. Throughout his affair with the Queen, Dudley was actually married. At least he was, until his wife died under mysterious circumstances. Many suspected that Dudley had his wife murdered so he could marry Elizabeth instead. What happened to him? Although their relationship carried on for decades, Elizabeth constantly refused his proposals. After one final extravagant attempt to convince Elizabeth to marry him, Robert turned his attention to his mistress, Lettice Knollys. When Elizabeth found out that the couple had married, she flew into a jealous rage, banishing the couple from court. Eventually, Elizabeth and Robert grew close again and stayed that way until he died. He was most definitely the love of her life.
And this concludes the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please click the like button, give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe for future videos. Thank you.